Record on this computer. Okay, so I've started the recording. So if you missed out on all of that, I'm sorry. We did figure out exactly how to keep Civil 3D from crashing. But I guess that's what you need. You need to be here in person to get that kind of information. But yeah, like I said, I'm going to start off with a little tip in Bluebeam Review. This is something cool that I've been using recently. So I've been helping out on some projects, and people would be redlining up some PDFs, and I'm going through and making sure that either all the red lines are done, or that I've addressed them, or something along those lines. And the problem is that as you're looking at the drawings, it's like, oh, did I finish that one or not? Did I get them all? Maybe I missed some. So here's what I like to do. I like to use the status for your markups to help you figure out what you've completed and what you haven't. Now, there is the option to change the color of a markup when you change the status. I'm not a real big fan of that, because now it's changing the markup, and maybe we have things color coded for certain people or something like that. Now we're changing the colors, and I'm not a big fan of that. So what I like to do is I like to use filters. All right, so down here in the markup list, I have a filter list. So I can turn on the filter, and now I can filter my markups based off of certain properties. So the property that I'm going to filter this off of is the status. Now I've actually completed all of these, and I've reset it. So that's, you can't get rid of statuses. So that's why they're showing up here twice. But what you have to do is, the first thing you have to do is you have to set a status. So I'm just going to come in here, and I'm going to double click on the status for this first one. This is this cloud up here. And I'm going to change the status to something that I am using. So I'm going to change it to completed. All right. And as you can see, the filter is now grayed out, or the markup is grayed out, and it's no longer listed down below here. And the reason is because I've got this filter set up. So let's go take a look at this filter. So you can either turn the filters on or off, and you can see the red coming on and off in the file up top there. But I'm filtering based off the status, and I've got this set to a custom filter. So when you click on this, you can, let me go ahead and clear that. All right, so you can see this is back up. And the status that I'm going to use, or the filter that I'm using, I click here where it says all, and I can either choose one of the filters that or one of the statuses that has already been applied. But what I want is, I want to see everything that I have not completed, or I haven't accepted, or I haven't dealt with yet. All right, so I'm going to come down here to custom, and I'm going to change this from equals to does not equal, and then I choose the status that I'm using. So in this case, completed, and I choose apply, and now I can see all of the ones that I haven't addressed yet. So as I go through and address these, so I'm just going to use the select tool here, and I've done all of those. I'll right click on one, set status, and I will set that completed status. And you can see in the file, they're now grayed back, and in the markup list, they're no longer being displayed down here. All right, so if I sort this by the page, you can see I still have 3 markups on this page, but that's it. And then once I'm done with those, again, I'll just set the status of all of these at the same time. You can see I no longer have any unfiltered markups for this specific page. And then I can go to the next one, and it takes me to the next page, and I can start addressing or confirming or whatever it is I'm doing these different markups. So that was just a quick something that I've been using recently in review that I thought you all might be able to find helpful as well. I know it's not Autodesk related, but I don't work for an Autodesk reseller anymore, so I'm
I have a
free to
question.
do whatever I want.
I have a follow-up question on that. So if you're in Bluebeam Studio, which you are, does that mean?
I'm not.
I'm assuming.
I'm not.
Oh, you're not? I thought it was.
No, this file is not in a session.
Okay, but if
Right?
you were in a studio session,
it was in a session, and I copied it out of the session just so I can mess with it. But anyways, go ahead.
Would that filter list show up just for you, I'm assuming, or does that get pushed through to other people?
The filter list is for me.
Yep. Sorry, I'm trying to buy time here since nobody's asking questions. I'm trying to do follow-up questions to what you presented.
But yeah, and you can filter on all this. This check mark one is good too. All right, so you can filter whether or not you just toggled this check mark on or off. All right, so you don't have to do any status or anything. So if I clear my this one, and I just say, hey, I want to filter for whether it's checked or not, as I check them, they go away. I prefer the status. I don't know if you can check or uncheck from here or not. Oh, yeah, you can. So I can check. And there they go. Now, the status is being set for the markup. And so that is in the session. So if you're doing this in a session, everybody else will see that status in the session, but their list won't be filtered. Do you use Review, Brian?
I do, but I'm very rarely in a studio session, so I don't do a whole lot of this. Usually the markups are something I've done or somebody sent to me. I mark it up, send it back to them, and yeah, almost all my clients use Bluebeam. So yeah, it's kind of that scenario. I just wish there was a way to like group some of the markups, because I hate it when architects go draw 20 lines and it looks like there's 20 markups on the page, but literally it's like they drew a door.
Why don't you just group them?
I'm not saying I don't know. I know how to group them, but
You just
it's kind of
select
one of those
them.
things where
Right click
great.
and group. And now you can treat it as a markup.
There was
And it shows up in the markup list as a single markup as well. And then if you need to, you can just right click on it and ungroup, and they're back to the individual markups.
That's the thing for me, is I don't see anybody do that, spend the time to do that. So like, you know, like you did earlier, you had a cloud, a note block, and a symbol. Oh, that's 3 markups. It's just, that's the one thing that drives me crazy. I wish there was like a, hey, I'm doing a markup now, I'm completed with that markup kind of scenario.
The other one that annoys me is people will come in here and they'll put in, let's see, let me pull up my markups here. Oops, I want my markups. You know, they'll put in a text box and they'll put in some text, whatever, right? And then they'll put in an arrow that says, hey, I'm going to point to that. And then I also want to point to that. And I want to point to that thing down there. This annoys me, because really that can all be done with a single leader.
Yes, agreed.
So I can come in here, put in my leader, put in my text. And then if you right click on it, you can add a leader that goes down to there and add another leader that goes, oops, try that again. Add another leader. Why is that not working? Let's try that again. Add a leader that goes up to there.
Yeah, and now it's 1 markup, not 5.
Yep. So, and the one thing I just learned recently is if you have it coming off the bottom there, that just looks silly. You can actually take this. Sorry, wrong button. Is it this button?
So you can grip, yeah.
They'll do a little grip over to, so they're all combined together.
Cool. So you're getting some questions now, but you did have one question on this, and it was Justin asking, do you have any custom blocks or line types for your toolbox in Bluebeam?
Oh yeah.
And I actually want to add a tip here that drives me crazy that there's not a button for it.
What's that?
Well, yeah, answer Justin's question here for your little blocks.
Yeah, so yeah, blocks are super simple. So we've got steel shapes here. We got some, so this is more of a structural type of a thing. So we've got a welding symbol. I have no idea what this means. If I double click on this, I can actually edit the text as well. Ooh, how did I do that? It's just a group. If I right click on it, I can ungroup it. And then you can see it's just a bunch of individual markups that are all grouped together. That's the cool thing, is if you have a piece of text in a group markup, you can still edit the text by double clicking on it.
Justin said he happen to have any civil blocks, manholes, inlets, etc. See, now
no,
all
we
these
don't.
Things you're showing and all the questions Justin asking is starting to get back to my original comment of we're doing Bluebeam CAD.
No, I don't. And, you know, I have no problem with Bluebeam CAD. You know, a perfect example of where that would be perfect is I got the site plan and I need to do a traffic control plan. What is a traffic control plan? Well, it's just symbols on top of the site plan. So the contractor can go in there, put in all the symbols and say, here's my traffic control plan. You don't need to know CAD to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I have no problems with that.
Exactly what I was saying. Justin said the same thing. And then so follow up to that is Rebecca said if you create custom statuses before you add it to the files, before you post it up to a studio session, every attendee will be able to see it.
Right. Yeah. So the statuses are available to all the attendees. It's just my filter list isn't. So the filter list is I'm filtering my markup list. right? But the status is available for everybody, and they can change it and it will affect my filter list. So if Brian, or let's say, for example, Brian, were to go in there and change the status of a markup to completed, it would then be grayed out on my screen because it's now completed, and I'm filtering that.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I would go change the status to be Brian is awesome, and it'd only be 2 of the 3 of us because we know how to spell our name properly. So the thing the Bluebeam tip that I always have, and what cracks me up, and this is where I always laugh with architects, did you know there's a disable line weights button for Bluebeam, so you don't even see line weights?
Yep.
So yeah, that's the tool that I show. It's on the view
It's
tab.
right. There's
go to the
also a
view tab.
shortcut for it, but I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. It's right here too. That's what
See, I don't think it's there in mine. Did you add it there? Because I'm pretty sure it's not there in mine.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's one thing I don't think everybody realizes, that you can just disable line weights, which helps a lot when you're trying to like place dimensions or something.
Yep.
You're like, did I get to the end point of that line? Because the lines are so fat, you have no idea.
Yeah, that's another great point. Now, if your line has a thickness to it, it will so that, for example, this was a polyline, and that polyline was plotted with a thickness. So the vector file itself has a thickness, so that
we
can't
we
disable
don't
that
have
one.
that in Revit, so I don't get that. But yeah.
Mhm.
But it's just, I don't know, it's a really nice thing. For me, I just default have that on, and I never see line weights. So like, I always laugh when architects and engineers are always like, hey, we want to play the line weights in Revit. I'm like, why? Nobody looks at line weights anymore. Everybody uses the disable line weights in Bluebeam, and doesn't matter.
Yeah, Jason posted in the chat is like, I like it for keeping engineers out of Civil 3D so they don't break anything.
Yeah.
And I take that personally because I am an engineer that's constantly in Civil 3D. So
Cool. Well, should we hop over to Civil 3D since we actually
yeah, let's go ahead and do it, since
questions.
this is Civil Chat after all.
All right, so the first question came up from one of the Davids. It says, sorry if you've answered this before, but I'm wondering on how well the grading optimization really works with Civil 3D 22 or 23. We have been slow to move to this and would like some feedback from someone using real life projects rather than an Autodesk demo.
I haven't used it, honestly. It's not something that we here at GEI would find a whole lot of benefit for. We do dams, we do those types of works. We don't do much site grading necessarily. And I think the grading optimization tools are really geared more towards that. So it's not something that we've really looked into here at GEI.
You mean the grading optimization isn't set up for earth and spillways?
Right, exactly. You guys use them at all, Brian? You're muted if you're still here. I haven't heard you in a while, which is
No,
weird.
I'm not here. I know. I was yeah, well, you kind of lost me on spelling Brian the right way. Anyways, grading optimization is something we don't use.
Okay.
However, I do know one of our groups would be able to use it. It's for landfill. And they do they would do multiple overlays within the landfill, and that would be one area that I could see it being utilized. But for the most part, the optimization that we're doing is it's I don't know, it's not just to me, it's like this one little thing that, yeah, it's just not in all the applications I've been trying to use it for. It just doesn't do what I'm wanting it to do.
Yeah. I can see it for like a new commercial project, right? You've got barren land, you're going to put a strip mall or a school or something like that on this site. I can see it being useful for a situation like that. And if we did work like that, it would definitely be something I would be looking into. But we don't, so I haven't looked into it.
And that's what David Clark said. They do a lot of land development. So he's like thinking it would probably be useful for him.
Yeah.
And Brian added in the chat, he has used it on a project. It's pretty interesting for complex projects, but he had an engineer do an initial grading design, and he did one in grading optimization. So I think for the type of work David, who asked the question, is talking about, it might actually be a good option for it.
Right. And from what I understand, it's not a magic design my site button. It's a, hey, here's a good place to start. Why don't you try this? All right, it's not going to give you final grades. It's not going to make sure that the drainage flows correctly everywhere. It's not going to ensure that you meet ADA, requirements. It gives you a good start. It helps you get a good start where you'll very likely be closer to balancing your earthworks than not.
And it looks like John M said the same thing. It's great for the initial design, but it's not good for final design.
Yeah. So I think it's worth definitely looking into, David. Check out AU. I know there have been several classes on it at AU. Can't think of his name. Craig starts with a D. Check out his class. I'm pretty sure he did one this last year. Yeah. So I would check out his class on that.
Cool. And then Lisa has a question with some follow-up points. She keeps getting an error message that says shortcuts were invalid and ignored. Plot styles table, lay wizard. Like, how do I get rid of it? This happens upon startup and no, the link is not broken. So I love it when somebody preempts your questions of, hey, it probably
Yeah, my
good job,
favorite
Lisa.
tech support question is when somebody messages me and I'm busy, and then a few minutes later they message back with, never mind, I figured it out. Those are my favorite tech support questions. I don't know. That's not something I've seen. Shortcuts were invalid and ignored. I would have to do a Google search on it.
Sid said the link is probably pointing to a different version of Civil 3D or AutoCAD.
It could be. Check your options. So under your options, it would probably be under your printer file support file path. It's probably one of these. Make sure that those are pointing to appropriate locations for your, because that's where you're going to find the plot style tables. Let's see, probably under plot style table search path. Make sure that you've got the correct ADA table style wizard, whatever it is called in there. But yeah, it's I don't know.
Yeah, Lisa said that could be it. She'll look.
Okay. Yeah, that's more of a technical support type of a thing, and it's it's hard to do without seeing and all that fun stuff. So
All right, so Sarah asked a question: when setting up a deployment, what were the settings to trick Civil 3D into thinking it's already runs the first launch? User profile dialog, not the profile and options.
when setting up a deployment, what were the settings to trick Civil 3D into thinking it's already run the first launch user profile dialog? I don't think there's a way to do that.
She says, where is the setting? So
I'm not aware of an option for that. So my understanding on the way it works is you get Civil 3D installed on your machine. And then when you launch it for the first time, it goes through what's known as the secondary installer. And it installs you as a user on Civil 3D. So I'm working away, doing Civil 3D, everything's going great. And all of a sudden, Joe comes over to my computer and I log out, Joe logs in. And now when Joe launches Civil 3D, it's going to go through the secondary installer for Joe on this machine. If that's what you're referring to, I don't know of a way around that. And I'm not sure why you would want to.
Yeah, because at that point in time, it's actually copying stuff from the proj data folder to the C users
Right.
folder, roaming and local, and creating those folders and everything for you automatically. I don't know if you'd be able to do that.
Yeah, you'd have to have those set up some way. And so you would
Yeah.
have to run some sort of a script to install the user as on that machine why not just let Civil 3D do it?
And I see that somebody saying there is for Revit. Well, Revit's more of a simplistic type of program. It's not nearly as advanced as Civil 3D. So, I mean, you could just put in one little argument file and it'd be easy.
Right.
well, the only reason I was asking if that was the case is I know back in the old days of Revit, I think they fixed this, that if you didn't run it as an administrator first, it wouldn't finish that secondary install. So if the person who first opened it, it wouldn't run your libraries for spell checking and a whole bunch of other things. So you literally had to go in and run it as an administrator. So if you didn't, after you deployed it, open it up as an admin, it didn't finish the deployment. So I don't know if she was running into something like that, but I know you guys at your company doesn't have admin rights, local admin rights. So I'm assuming that's not a problem.
Yeah, so yeah, our users don't have admin rights. I don't even have admin rights on my machine with my account. When I have to go install other software, I have to log in as my CAD admin account in order to install software on my machine.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
she said that Brian said he was the reason he could see trying to skip this is he's had that secondary installation take over an hour for certain users.
that sounds like an IT issue to me. That it should only take a few minutes, if that. So. But here's the link that Sarah had posted up to the chat. Yeah, I don't know. I've never had somebody ask me about that before. So that was an interesting one.
All right, so we got one from Anonymous.
Ooh, my favorite person. Welcome, Anonymous. You seem to show up quite often.
I know this person is like at every session I go to, and they're
All
always
right.
asking questions. So I love the fact that they ask questions.
Exactly.
Do you have any experience with reference templates and best practices for when and how to use them?
We don't use reference templates, at least not yet. It's something I've looked into a little bit, but I haven't done a whole lot with them. Do you use them, Brian?
No.
Okay.
No, we do not.
I can talk about them a little bit. I'm familiar with them. It's just not something that we've implemented here. And I can see, I see pros and cons to using reference templates. The pros to using reference templates is if you're working on this project and we all of a sudden decide, hey, we need all of our spot elevation labels to go from a precision of 2 out to the 100th, now out to being out to the 1000th. You don't have to go through every drawing and change those settings. You can just change them in the reference template and it will change in all the other drawings. So let's see, let me go ahead. I'm going to create a brand new blank drawing here. I'm going to start this with no template. So I have basically no styles in this drawing. Oh, once it's done, come on. Now let's see, let's bring up the tool space here. And so if I come over here to my settings, you can see all we have, is the standard styles, right? Right. So parcel style, standard, table styles, line, curve, standard, right? So this is a blank AutoCAD drawing opened in Civil 3D. Now I want to be able to use my template as a template in here. So I can go to manage, I believe is where it is. Under styles, I can then attach a reference template. So I'll go ahead and browse to our template. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy of our template so I can, actually, I can just change. No, I don't want to change it. CAD support, Civil 3D 2023 template. Why is you not set to template? There we go. So I'm just going to copy this so I can make changes to it without messing up my stuff. We'll go here. All right. Oh, I forgot to actually paste it in.
I think you forgot to hit paste there, mister.
Yeah, I did. Let's make sure. See temp delete me. We'll go ahead and paste that in and then we'll select it. That works a lot better that way.
And Jason says reference templates are great.
Yeah. All right. And so down here in the bottom left, you can choose what it is that you want to use from the reference template. So you don't have to use everything. So you're like, I only need the point styles. Well, you can uncheck everything and then just toggle on the point styles. Uncheck everything. Right. And so you can toggle on and off the things that you want. I'm just going to go ahead and leave everything on. Your settings, your feature settings, your drawing settings, the layers that are in that template, you can reference them in. There we go. All right, so all the layers that were in that drawing, other resources, blocks, textiles, line types. So these are all things that you can reference in. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm bringing everything in. And now if we come up here, I should collapse all this up. All right, surface label styles for spot elevation. You can see we've got our spot elevation labels in here. All right, and the nice thing about this is if I need to make a change to a style in this drawing, I can still do that. All right, so let's say I want to make a change to the style. I'll just go edit the style. I'll make a change to it. I'm just going to make a change. It really doesn't matter what the change is. And when I select OK, it brings me up this dialog box. So basically saying, hey, you're modifying a style that came from the reference template. That's not really a good thing to do. So what do you want to do? Do you just want to apply the edits for this drawing session only? So once I close the drawing and then reopen it, it's going to revert back to the way it is in the template. Or do you want to make a local copy of the style? And so it's going to be a style that's now owned by this drawing. All right, so I'm going to make a local copy. And you can see we now have this copy, and it is not a reference style. That's why it doesn't have the little paperclip next to it. Right, and so this now lives in this drawing. If I go back to the template and I make a change to the styles there, all of these reference styles will then change. And so that's where I'm saying it could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing. I can see it being really powerful for like a project template, right? So for this project, we want all of our styles to look exactly the same. So if I need to make a change to a style, I go make it in the reference template, and then all of the styles in this project change. I am leery to do that for the entire company. I don't want all of our template to have a reference template attached to it, because if I go make a change to a style, it's going to change in all of the drawings throughout the company, and that might not work for this specific project. And so that's why I'm leery of doing it on a company-wide basis, but I can see it being really useful for a project-specific type of a thing.
So if you had started your project off of your company template,
Mhm.
and then you're like, man, the standards for this project needs XYZ.
Mhm.
And you go change those standards to XYZ and reference that template. Is it going to overwrite the ones with the same name? So you
Yes.
could go create, hey, okay, so if you already had one called GEI SRV topo for your spot elevations, and you change that in reference template, it would overwrite what's going on in here and then give you the paperclip.
Yes. Mhm.
I think that is brilliant, because for a lot of things I see on projects, you get to a different government project. Oh, we need these particular fonts or whatever it may be. You could then overwrite those styles, like you said, for that particular project. I think that's a really great feature.
Yeah, and like I said, for a project-specific type of thing, it's great. But I don't see the benefit of it doing it company-wide. Now, there might be people that disagree with me, and if you do, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
You kind of see doing it company-wide, and it's like, hey, at some point in time, you could then just you could copy your company template to your project folder and point it to the one for your particular project. If you're like, hey, this one is fixed. If you had it set up company-wide, always use the company template. And in this particular project is fixed, literally just copy that template to your project folder and then repath it to that template. So I can kind of see doing it that way.
Right, but the problem I have with it doing company-wide is if we have decided as a company that we are now going to make this one change, we're going to change something about our styles, and this project is like in the middle of being printed, or it's like right there at submittal time, and now the previous submittal had the styles looking one way, and now this submittal has the styles looking a different way. That's kind of where I'm seeing that's where I'm getting hung up on it. But if it's for a specific project, it's great. So I'm not sold on company-wide reference templates yet.
And Brian, I'll agree with you on that in
Yeah.
the fact that for most cases, you need a snapshot of what that particular project has for its standards.
Exactly.
It's kind of like doing a reference details for all of your details. And if one of them updates, well, now all of your projects update to that new detail. You can't have that.
That's a great analogy. I love that analogy. Yeah.
You
Yep.
just, you got to keep that snapshot.
Totally agree. So hopefully Anonymous, that's helped. Let's see. And like I said, if I go into my layers, all the layers have been referenced in. I think like if I go into my textiles, my textiles have been referenced in. I'm not sure what happens if you try to override them, but anyways, that's not something I've played around with a whole lot. But yeah. So does anybody use reference templates company-wide that would like to share successes or failures? Like I said, I would love to hear more. If this is something that's working great for somebody, then maybe that'll work great for us and we can make a change here. And the silence is definitely. Yeah, Jennifer said in the chat, we tried several years back and they didn't work. Yeah, like I said, it's company-wide. I just can't. So. All right, I think I beat that dead horse enough. And Brian is gone. All right, I guess I will read the next question. This one comes from Sean. Do you know of a software to use a sample PDF plan that you could convert from PDF to CAD? That would be great if we could convert the PDF drawings into CAD. Do I know of a software that can convert PDF to CAD? Yeah, I did hear about one. The name is, I believe it's called AutoCAD.
Yeah, I believe,
Right.
Yeah, it's right in. We also have we've got hardware. We call them interns.
Yeah, so let me XREF in a PDF here real quick. So I'll attach a PDF. Let's see, we'll go to here. All right, so let's see. I'm going to bring in sheet. We'll bring in sheet 4. This is more of a CAD type of drawing. That looks good. You would scale it, position it, whatever. All right. And then once you've got the PDF referenced in, you simply select it. And up there on the ribbon, you choose import as objects. Now, as you're doing this, there's a couple of options. So you can pick the area that you want, or you can do all of it. So I'm just going to do a rectangle. I'm just going to do it around this building here. All right. Now it's going to ask, hey, what do you want to do with the original PDF that was referenced in? Do you want to keep it? Do you want to get rid of it? Or do you want to keep it, but just unload it? So I'm going to go ahead and detach it because the only reason I brought it in here was to create this line work. So I'll choose detach. And now I have line work. Now it's not perfect. Line types don't exist in a PDF. So these are individual pieces of line. But you've got the line work. And you can now use your hardware, aka interns, to clean it up and make those those dashed lines into an actual line. And yeah, that's all there is to it. Now, this only works on vector PDFs. All right, so if your PDF is a scanned PDF, this ain't gonna touch it. If you've got that sort of a thing, then what you'll want to do is you'll want to convert it to an image, and then you can start using the raster tools to start digitizing that. So we have tools up here that allow you that will assist you in digitizing a raster file to a vector file. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot easier than just doing it manually, going click, 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 because it has these concept of followers, right? So it has a polyline follower, contour follower, things like that. So hopefully that answered your question. If it didn't, let me know. As we're done answering that one. Okay, so David has a question. How would you rate the quality of the PDF that you had up previously? Are layers available? Is the line work solid? Was it flattened when you received it? So I'm assuming you're referring to this PDF here. This is a PDF that I actually created myself. So if I come over here to layers, you can see there are no layers. And the reason there are no layers is because I turned off the layers. I'm not a fan of sending out a PDF to contractors that have layers. And the reason I don't like doing that is because they can turn something off that's really important and then they miss it and then it doesn't get built right. So I do not send out PDFs with layers to contractors. I think that's a really bad idea. What do you think on that, Brian?
100% agree. I
Okay.
will flatten it out and actually print it as an image so that way they can't modify or lift anything from it.
There you go.
Yeah, it's yeah, there and talk about sending CAD files out. Oh my gosh, I am so against that. It's ridiculous. But yeah, anybody ask me, hey, can you send out a CAD file? I'm like, I need your firstborn.
Right. So when you're printing from Sheet Set Manager, right, what a lot of us will do is we'll just come in here, publish, and then publish to PDF, right? At least that's what we do here.
Yeah,
So
no.
how do you change the settings for that? Well, you come down to Sheet Set PDF Publish options. And this is, I believe it's stored per sheet set. And as you can see, I've turned off the include layer information for this specific project. And this is the sheet set for that PDF. That's how I created that PDF we were just looking at. So I unchecked the include layer information.
Hey, while we're on that, Brian, can I go over a couple of things, just some questions for you guys on thoughts in
Sure.
that? But I don't want to derail from what, so go ahead and answer.
Yeah, let me finish that. So
yeah,
but then you're asking about the quality. The quality is great. You can see it's a digital piece of paper, but you know, as you zoom in, ooh, that's funky looking. That's cool.
It's ink bleed on the paper.
There you go. Yeah, you can see it's pretty high quality. Settings control how you do it. Here's a perfect example of drawing a symbol using a bunch of different lines, and that should have all just been grouped together. Anyways, yeah, I think the quality is good. When I received it, it wasn't flattened because it was just a printout from CAD. So there was nothing to flatten. So when something is flattened, basically what you've got is you've got markups, and you take the markups and you push them down into the level of the PDF. So I like to think of it as two different levels. You have the PDF content, and then floating on top of that, you have the markup content. And when you flatten it, you're basically making the markups a part of the PDF itself. So if I come in here and I flatten this, flatten down here at the bottom. There we go. You see there are no more markups down here, and this markup is not something that's selectable. So I can't make changes to it, right? But it is now part of the PDF itself. If I need to get rid of this, I can either put a mask on top of it, or I can use the edit PDF content, erase content, and then I can erase that portion of the markup, right? I'm gonna go ahead and undo that. Now, because I don't know if other software can do this or not, but with Bluebeam, when you flatten, there's an option for markup recovery. So when I came in here to flatten, I had the allow markup recovery unflatten option turned on. So if I can then unflatten it, and it pulls all those markups back up into the markup level, and they're now markups again. But if I had turned that off, I would not be able to unflatten it. They're permanently then a part of that PDF level, so to speak.
I've had people who don't have Bluebeam have issues if I've printed to PDF from a software using the Bluebeam printer, where they can't even open the file. Like, for example, if I don't flatten it in Bluebeam. And for me, it's very simple things like, oh, I printed a Word document, like a contract in a Word document, and like the marketing people like, we can't open the PDF, I have to flatten it, even though there's no markups or anything in it. I do sometimes have to go through and flatten it for people using like a very, very basic PDF viewer.
That's interesting. I had not heard that one before. So, but Brian,
Ironically, for me,
you
it's
had some thoughts?
well, it was mainly on the publishing, on
Mhm.
what we try to do if you go into that published portion. Now, we don't use the published PDF. We use published page setup overrides so that way we set up those overrides. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But whenever we go to the PDF publish options, there's a couple of things we do to, first off, reduce the size, like the vector quality at 1200 DPI. Most printers don't print that high of DPI. Typically, they go to 600.
Okay.
And then also rasterization. I'll change the rasterization to 150, and I'll tell you why behind that is because if you've got a raster image, and now if you're just going to scale the PDF up, then the raster image needs to be at a higher quality. But if it's at full size at 24 by 36, 150 DPI is more than adequate for anything else that is needed out there. And if you shrink it down, the DPI only goes up. So that's a quick way to reduce your PDF sizes as well. And then I also, for everything that we do not include hyperlinks. We don't create bookmarks, and we do not capture the font in the drawing. We convert it to geometry so that way stuff cannot be lifted. Now, we do get some questions about, it can still be searchable, and you can still grab text from it, copy from it, and paste it out. But hey, it goes to reducing the file size.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so my understanding is that the capture fonts used in the drawing, if it's not a standard Windows font, then it gets put into the PDF itself so that it can be used for, I don't know, display correctly.
Right, and wasn't that EPX or whatever it was in 2016? That wasn't part of that? Okay, because we get those like wonderful little yellow squares all over the little comments everywhere, which was always fun.
I don't think it is. But no, we include hyperlinks because if you're using like the sheet set manager and you have a field that references another page, it'll automatically create a hyperlink to that other page if it's all a single page.
Yeah, unfortunately, we multidiscipline, that doesn't apply because we don't just do civil. We've also got Revit in there, structural, mechanical.
Right. And
So it's a bummer thing we miss out on.
In my opinion, this isn't that big of a deal because if you're going to be doing hyperlinks, you're going to go into review and you're going to do the book, the batch link anyways. So.
Yeah.
Brian brought up a point on that font embedding is that it only works with TrueType fonts. So if you're using AutoCAD SHX fonts, that's not going to embed it anyway.
Correct. Yeah. Just with the TrueType fonts.
Yep.
Because an SHX font is not really a font.
Yeah.
Yes. And then
it's an imaginary.
I think David C must be a contractor because he says, man, you're totally limiting the ability of review when you don't send out the layers. Because being able to turn layers on and off and working with the site plan and trying to do takeoffs, et cetera, makes it a huge feature, trying to make life easier.
Right. But I would not do that for a signed set of plans. Now, like what Brian was saying, oh, we never send out, drawing files. We use CAD files all the time. This CAD file was not created by us. This was sent to us by somebody else because we were doing something on top of it. And so they sent us the CAD file and we used that just as a background for our design. We understand there's limitations on it. There's some risk, but we have to have some sort of a basis for our design because all we were designing were these things here, right? That's what we were designing. Their vibratory stone columns basically makes the dirt stronger for the foundation, right? And yes, I like to call it dirt just to piss off the geotechs.
Soil.
Right. And so we get CAD files all the time. We just understand that, yes, we're something we have to do. So I'm not sure who it was saying that was who you're just saying, Brian, about the contract and the takeoffs.
Well, no, what I was speaking to about CAD files being, out there and having, the bit to it is we've also had contractors that will negate the signed document and take the CAD files and start building right off the CAD files, which is the biggest no-no in the book.
Right.
And so to protect ourselves from that, yeah, I understand that quantity takeoffs would be probably best, and easier for whenever you're doing stuff off the PDF. However, you know, you want to go through and manually do it for the gut check type of thing.
But as far as using layers within a PDF for like quantities and those types of things, ask for a printout of the drawing that's has layers in it. That's not an official signed document. So
Yeah, I think that's the thing that always cracks me up. I think if contractors would ask for things more often, we could say, sure, we can unofficially give that to you.
Yep. Oh yeah, I'll give them areas and I'll give them links of, you know, the pipelines and such, but I'll just give it to them as, here's the one file, here it is, you can, and here, and then they'll be able to utilize that.
it's not a sheet.
Yep,
It's
correct.
just
Yeah.
information. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole, I think that's the big concern for us is when it goes out on that sheet with a little stamp on it, it gets really tricky in there.
Exactly. Mhm.
And then Sid said for you, Thomasy, that if you set the PDF SHX value to 0, it'll keep the fonts from being displayed as comments in the PDF.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the PDF SHX. So if that is turned on, so if I remember correctly, if that's turned on, when you plot a drawing that has SHX fonts, it will create markups, invisible markups on top of your text in your PDF so that it is searchable. Because like I said, SHX is not really a font. So it shows up just as lines in your PDF. And so,
so Sean-
my opinion is you should never have to worry about this because you should be using TrueType fonts.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing is I don't think it's been so long since we've used any type of SHX that I can't.
It usually happens when we got, you know, like this, where we're using another person's drawing as information in ours.
But then how do I do %P? Come on.
It still works.
Yeah, it still works.
It still works in TrueType font all the
Oh,
time.
yeah, my default font is let's see. Yeah, so
Comic Sans?
Yeah, percent
Yeah, Comic
P, yeah, percent P, percent C,
Yeah.
percent D. That all still works great.
Oh, I have no idea. I don't use any of that stuff anymore.
Yep.
Does that work in Revit like that?
No. Absolutely not.
I know.
So talking about text, here's a fun one. I need to put in a delta symbol. How do I find the delta symbol? And you can just right click.
174.
You go to symbol, and you have a bunch of symbols that are already available here. All right, if your symbol is not listed here, you can come down here to other. And then you've got your character map, and you can choose just about any character you want. All right, so I don't like
And
this one.
if you
Whatever
choose
the
one of
heck
those-
this is, I have no idea what it is. All right, so I just double click on it. I choose copy, and then I can come in here and I can paste that in.
And in the character map, if you select that symbol and you see something in the lower right-hand corner, that's the keystroke for it in any program, not just AutoCAD. So go back up to like a more common symbol.
Are you talking about like this U plus here?
No, it'll be in the bottom right. So find a more common symbol. Yeah, so that is Alt
down here?
0176. So the thing about the keystroke is when you type in the 0176, it cannot be on the number key of the keyboard. It has to be the numbers on a keypad. So if you hold down Alt, type in 0176 in any dialog box in Windows, it will give you the degree symbol.
Oh, I mistyped.
Oh, well, then I'm out of luck because I don't have a 10 key on my keyboard.
Most laptops, if you hold the function key down, it uses like, you know, the U and I and O and all that crap.
Oh, gotcha.
So you hold, in that case, you'd hold Alt function and get that down there. So yeah, that works in Word, that works in Excel, it works in any Windows-based program for the font you're using. So they could be different per fonts.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, what else we got? We got 8 minutes left.
So I just want to say that David had a question to Thomasy when he said he sends it all out as images as opposed to an actual PDF people can use. He's like, how are you doing that?
Whenever you print, you can actually print to a file or print it as an image. So if he goes into, so if you open up Bluebeam, here's a way to do it as well. And And because what we've actually got a method in which we can get our engineers to stamp and seal these the PDFs themselves without having to do a digital signature. Is what we will have them do is we will have them stamp and scan their signature, and so they're in control of their stamp on their computer. They plop it in there as an image, and then you can go to document and you use the flatten command.
Mhm.
Well, after you use the flatten command, so you go ahead and do the flatten and you get rid of the allow markup recovery, and it'll flatten everything down. So just, you can pretend like you've done that.
I just did.
Okay, perfect. So now everything is portioned. Now, if you go and reprint this guy, and down over, let me see. Yeah, I believe it's in the advanced portion. So there's an advanced portion right here. See where it says right there, just as image. Raw format. You're done. It's an image.
Then,
Nothing can be lifted.
so is that then a PDF extension, or is that a TIFF JPEG? What kind of extension is
Nope, it's still a PDF extension. Now the beautiful thing about this is most, and now I'm out here in Washington, and Washington, if you're going to do a document that is there's difference between digital signature and a stamped document that's scanned in.
Mhm.
They will allow, because you can never get away from the fact of, hey, if I print this stuff out and I put a wet seal on it, then I scan it back in, I should be able to always give that as my issued for construction, my construction sealed documentation. You can do that to any organization, and it's not considered a digital signature because your seal was actually placed on there, you stamped it, and then you scanned it back in. So you've done everything that you possibly can to keep that from being maliciously altered and modified. Furthermore, you can, by adding your image to it, flattening it, then printing it as an image, it's the exact same methodology as going through, hard stamping it, and then scanning it in and creating a PDF. And then furthermore, from here,
Close.
but you can't, I will beg to differ on that. It's
Oh,
not.
that's fine. You can beg all you want.
Yeah,
I don't mind people begging from me.
Yeah, the thing is you can then add a password protection on this thing.
Mhm.
So that way people can't print, or they can't even open it without a password. And if they try to modify it, it will not allow it to be modified at all.
Right. So when I say close, if you're using the same stamp or image of your stamp and signature on every page, that's not the same as stamping each one individually, because your signature is going to vary per page.
That's correct. Yes.
So that's why I said it's close.
Well, if a person wanted to, they could alter their signature as they go through and,
Right.
and do it.
I just
and
had this
sign it each
conversation with one of our engineers just last week
Mhm.
about stamping those. And that's one thing he said, that they, you would have to go through and sign the piece of paper 20 times for the 20 sheets. Right.
No, that's where you bring Dynamo in and have it stretch the image differently for every time you're pasting it. And it's a Dynamo image stretch, so it's slightly different on every page. Had to throw a Dynamo in there before we ended.
Yeah, but the signature is just a recognizable, uniquely identified item per the individual that recognizes it as their own signature and can be followed in a court of law. So if it varies, yeah, I mean, I've been as part of signature parties where you can read it at the very first signature, and by the end, it just looks like a line.
So the last question we have with our last 3 minutes is there a way for AutoCAD PDFs to have ability to print as line merge instead of hiding line color on top of the other line?
I think that was just in.
So when you're creating the PDF, yes.
Yep, absolutely.
So if you go into your PDF published dialog box, there is an option in here for line control. So lines overwrite or lines merge. Once it's in a PDF, it's just a PDF. I don't think there's any way to change it after it's already a PDF.
Cool. And that is the last question.
All right, great. Well, it's
perfect timing.
Yeah, it's right at the end of the hour. So that's awesome. Thank you everybody for coming. I appreciate you all. Make sure that you spread the word about Civil Chat. The more people we get here, the more questions we'll have, the better it will be, and the better I will look. So that's always important. So we'll see y'all next month. Take care and have a great day.
Thanks, Brian.